You could feel the script in the air all week. Aaron Rodgers returns to face the Packers, who made him a legend. The TV chatter, the nostalgia reels, the whole revenge game narrative, it practically wrote itself. And for the first half, it nearly stuck. Rodgers looked sharp, the Steelers looked composed, and the storyline had legs. Then, the game turned into something messier and much more revealing. A study in second half adjustments, in timing, in which team was better at turning small edges into sustained momentum. Jordan Love didn't merely outduel Rodgers, he took over, quarter by quarter, drive by drive, until the Packers weren't just playing well, they were running Pittsburgh off the field. Here's the meat of what happened and why it matters. First half. Rodgers and the Steelers grabbed the headlines. Rodgers came out poised. He completed early throws, managed the chains, and hit the kind of play-action windows he's still excellent at finding. Pittsburgh's offense built a lead thanks to clean situational execution and a chunk play to DK Metcalf, the kind of contested catch that early in the night reads like a team in control. Green Bay, on the other hand, looked off. Love was okay rather than dominant. The rushing game didn't sternly chew clock or dictate fronts. Defensively, the Packers gave up a few costly plays, penalties and coverage busts that extended drives. At halftime, it felt like Rodgers might get that perfect retro headline: returns, inspires, nearly wins. Second half. Love flipped the switch, right? Then Green Bay flipped something on. Whatever coach and coordinator schematic meeting happened at halftime was crisp and decisive. Love started threading throws in rhythm, quick outs, pocket escapes, then the deeper timing shots that punished second-level coverage. He hit a few throws that were not merely accurate, but beautifully timed. The ball where the receiver could run after it, the kind of throw that makes a second defender hesitate. 3 drives in the third quarter turned the game. Long, methodical marches that ate clock and ended in touchdowns. Those drives weren't flukes. They were the result of sustainable attack building, better pre-snap reads, cleaner protections, and an offensive line that began to win its battles. Love's completion streak, tying franchise markers, wasn't just a stat. It was evidence of control. He extended plays, threw with touch, and avoided panic. Defense finally became a presence more. The Packers' defense, which had been opportunistic earlier in the season, found its footing. The pass rush started getting home with more consistency. Coverage tightened in the second half, turning what had been big plays into punts or short gains. Pressure begets hurried throws beget turnovers or punts. That tidy chain reinforces the most basic truth of football. Offenses win when they sustain drives, defenses win when they stop them. After halftime, Green Bay executed both. Why Rodgers' strong first half didn't hold up? Rodgers had flashes, big arm moments, and veteran pocket presence, but the Packers adjusted to the Steelers' tendencies. Schematically, Pittsburgh became more predictable after halftime. Green Bay was ready. Rodgers, for all his guile, had to navigate an increasingly aggressive front and coverages that stopped letting him throw the quick outlet. When you're playing an evolved defense and you can't consistently sustain third downs, the clock and scoreboard turn against you. What this says about Jordan Love and the Packers' trajectory. Love's growth is real, and it's not purely about arm talent. This game was about processing speed and competitive temperament. Love responded to adversity in the first half and played with steady escalation. When he has protection and receivers separating, and when the defense lets him operate with fewer cover 2 hangups, he looks like a quarterback capable of leading high-quality second-half football. If Green Bay keeps producing halves like the one they played after intermission, this becomes more than a feel-good narrative. It becomes a sustainable identity. They're not just leaning on nostalgia for Rodgers. They are building their own brand of winning football around Love. What the Steelers must fix: fast Pittsburgh can't be satisfied with 2 quarters of good football and 1 disastrous half. The offense needs more than Rodgers' arm. It needs consistency up front, cleaner receiver separation, and fewer self-inflicted errors. Defensively, the unit showed cracks in third-quarter adjustments, which allowed Green Bay to take control. This loss stings because it was a missed opportunity. Beating the Packers in prime time with Rodgers under center would have been a momentum builder. Instead, the Steelers now have to answer questions about depth, in-game adaptability, and whether they can sustain pressure on a QB who grows more dangerous as he settles in. Bigger picture and next steps. For Green Bay, the takeaway is confidence. A comeback like this validates the coaching staff's halftime work and gives Love a signature moment, the kind that changes how teammates and fans view a young starter. For Pittsburgh, the directive is surgical. Tighten up protection, diversify play calls in the second half, and shore up the defense's ability to respond to mid-game schematic shifts. A scoreboard line can tell you who won and lost. The second half tape tells you who is evolving. Rodgers got his moment in the first half, and that'll live on highlight reels. But in a long season, the team that can make sharper adjustments and finish stronger, the one that showed it on Sunday night, is the one you should bet on finding more wins. End image, the lights dim, Rodgers walking off with a complex mix of nostalgia and frustration, while in the visitors' locker room a young QB gets his due and a staff nods like architects who just proved their blueprints work. That's the real story. Not a single game's box score, but the direction each franchise is choosing to build. You ready for a gut punch and a passing clinic rolled into one? Jordan Love showed up in Pittsburgh and reminded everyone he didn't just inherit Aaron Rodgers' jersey, he learned how to use it. The Packers roared back in the second half and left Acrisure Stadium with a 35-25 win, and Love finished the night 29 of 37 for 360 yards and 3 touchdowns. ESPN.com. Right from the jump, this felt like a movie about passing. Rodgers looked tidy early, vintage feel, poise, the whole old friend returns storyline, and the Steelers scored enough to keep it interesting. But Green Bay flipped a switch after halftime. Love started finding seams, rhythm, and one of the NFL's best dead-eye slants, accurate, calm, confident. The Packers ripped off 3 straight second-half touchdown drives and never really gave the lead back. ESPN.com, Tucker Kraft was the unexpected dagger. The tight end had his night. Big plays, yards after catch, 2 TDs, and finished with a monster receiving day, 143 yards that completely opened the field for Love. When a tight end is busting seams like that, the middle of the defense dies, and Love made the defense pay over and over. Packers now, let's not pretend Rodgers didn't do his part. He threw 4 touchdowns, scrambled when he had to, and even produced a 68-yard dime late that looked like a scene from his past highlight reels. But football is a team sport, and crucially tonight, the Packers' second half was better by inches that kept adding up. Rodgers' Steelers had a few bursts, a few explosive plays, but Green Bay answered almost every time. The difference: Love didn't turn the ball over and kept the chains moving when it mattered most. ESPN.com, what mattered in the second half wasn't flair. It was finishing. Green Bay's defense tightened, created enough hesitation at the line of scrimmage, and the offense executed on third down and in the red zone. Love's passer rating ballooned into the 130s. He played like a quarterback who absorbed lessons and then stopped being a student and started being a teacher. That's the brutal twist. The mentor came back, and the pupil showed he's ready to write his own chapter. Packers-Pittsburgh's story tonight is one of close calls and missed opportunities. They hung in the game, traded blows, and Aaron Rodgers gave them more than you could reasonably expect. But when the Steelers needed a stop, Green Bay's offense answered. You can't win if you can't make the other team pay for mistakes, and Paycor-style finishing separated the two teams after halftime. ESPN.com, small moments swung big. A long completion to Christian Watson and that jaw-dropping 59-yard Tucker Kraft run early in the comeback weren't just highlight reels, they were momentum detonators. When Love completed one of those gravity-defying passes and the crowd realized the game was tilting, the whole narrative shifted from Rodgers' reunion to the successor is here. Packers, on the human side, this was emotional, sure. Rodgers spoke with respect after the game. He applauded Love, acknowledged the quality of the performance, and framed it like a craftsman admiring another craftsman's work. But by the final whistle, the scoreboard told a clean story. The Packers were better tonight. That's the hard, cold part of pro sports that turns warm backstories into box score history. ESPN.com. So what does this mean going forward? For Green Bay, it's a statement. Love isn't a project anymore. He's a contender on the rise. For Pittsburgh, it's a reality check. Rodgers is still playing elite moments, but the roster needs answers and consistency if they want to capitalize on his vintage flashes. Either way, the QB carousel narrative just got louder. Mentorship can turn into succession in a single night. ESPN.com quick takeaways you can quote the next time someone says the NFL's passing game is stale. Jordan Love's second half poise showed starter swagger, not rookie luck. 360 yards, 3 TDs. Packers, Tucker Kraft exploded and changed the game plan for the Steelers' defense. When your tight end looks like a WR, life gets hard fast. Packers. Aaron Rodgers still has plenty left in the tank, but one man's glow can't paper over roster gaps. The team outcome matters more than any single performance. ESPN.com. If you want to talk matchup charts, here's the blunt truth. Green Bay's second half adjustments beat Pittsburgh's halftime responses. That's coaching and execution combined. Love made the right reads. Packers play callers put him in spots to thrive. Receivers delivered. The result? A tidy 35-25 final and a simmering conversation about what passing the torch actually looks like in real time. ESPN.com. Ending line, simple and sticky. The mentor came home, but tonight the successor taught the class. Remember that image. Jordan Love left Pittsburgh not just with a win, but with the kind of night that changes how his season is talked about on Mondays and how his legend might begin to get written.